So with that, you've teed things up perfectly. We're going to talk about on today's show. We're going to talk about how we can bring a bit of life to our Zoom calls when we're on that stage of a Zoom, Skype, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. How we can add a bit of life and energy to those conversations. And it's clearly not just sales professionals who are doing this at the moment. So this might be applicable for people outside of that realm as well. Now, I want to start the show by being just. This hopefully isn't a lazy question. I wanted to be massively open-ended here, just to get your thoughts before I start leading us down different pathways. What has changed, or what needs to change when we shift from a face-to-face sales meeting, sales conversation, when we're trying to influence people, we're trying to entertain them, we're trying to somewhat persuade them to our way of thinking and our products and services? What's changed in the virtual world versus how we go about things in the face-to-face world, Nick?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. Everything changes. That's the bad news. It really does. And the reason is a little nerdy, so I'm going to start nerding out instantly on this. What we humans care about more than anything else is each other's intent. So what I care about when you call me up and say, Nick, come back on the show is what's your intent? Are you a friendly person? Are you going to sandbag me? Are you going to try to catch me out on some question I don't know the answer to? I mean, that sounds a little paranoid, but that kind of question, friend or foe, is the first basic question that we ask of every other human being, especially when we meet them for the first time, especially if we don't know them well. And then beyond that, we ask questions like, is this person more powerful or less powerful than me? Can I trust this person or not? And those are, of course, questions that you ask of salespeople and that salespeople ask of potential customers. Is this customer for real, or is he or she just window shopping? Is this person making legitimate claims, or is this person going to turn out to be insolvent and completely useless? So there's a whole series of questions that you ask more or less unconsciously. Those are questions to intent. That is, what is the intent of the other person? Now, the reason everything changes online is that most basic question becomes much harder to answer satisfactorily online. And the reasons for that are quite nerdy, are quite detailed and specific, and they vary according to the technology. But just in the technology we're using, the Zoom call or the Skype call or the Teams call, whatever video conferencing facility you use, we are moved from a three-dimensional face-to-face view to a two-dimensional view. And while we modern humans are very used to looking at photographs and TV and the movies, and so we think when we see an image, a two-dimensional image, that we know how to translate it into three dimensions. We actually don't, and we're not very good at it, surprisingly. And so we lose these questions, or we lose focus on these questions of attitude and intent. So that's where it starts. That's why everything's different. And then we can get into the details of how it's different. But the first thing to understand, as I say, on video conferencing is going from 3 dimensions to 2. Even though I think I'm seeing your face is still flattened out into 2 dimensions. And as good looking as you are, well, in 2 dimensions, in 3 dimensions, all those facial planes come back, and I can see more seriously. I can see your expressions much more thoroughly than I can on a video conference. And so, not being able to read your expressions as clearly in a video, I don't understand your intent. Not understanding your intent, then I have all kinds of questions that I'm immediately going to be asking.
Just to double down on one thing you said there, Nick, in particular, you said the word, I don't know if you use subconscious or unconscious, but these are all things that are happening in the buyer's brain. They're not consciously thinking, do I trust this person? Is this person more powerful than me? What is the overall intent? Is that correct?
That's right. These are all questions that our unconscious minds ask of each other. They're more powerful because they're unconscious, because you're not consciously aware of them, and so they get asked and answered before your conscious mind engages. So you get that funny feeling, I'm not sure if I trust this person or not, and that means that question has already been asked and answered, in effect. And because it's unconscious, it's therefore very fast and very hard to change once it gets asked and answered. So it's all the more important to pay attention to them. They're powerful.
Sure. And how much of this, we might digress slightly here, but how much of this comes from the fact that you turn on a call and you're there, you're having the conversation, then you turn off the call, versus when we meet people in person, you walk into the room, you probably shake hands, you probably have a few words that you wouldn't do on a Zoom call prior. You sit down, you might get out your files, and there's so much body language, and you can tell if someone's up to something, if they're nervous, if they're excited, if they're happy. How much of the communication is lost just by the fact that we're chopping off either end of it by having an online virtual meeting?
That's a great point, and one that people don't think about much. Although I've talked to a number of leaders recently who are trying to lead people, lead their teams on video conferencing, and they report this problem. It's very difficult to tap somebody on the shoulder before the meeting and say, well, Will, there's this little thing that you tend to do in meetings. I just wanted to warn you, don't do that in this meeting, because the folks we're meeting with are very sensitive to that. And if you start doing what you would do in the meeting, they're going to hate you, and that's the end of the meeting right there. So so a little word to the wise, that kind of thing you can do casually and in a way that can feel supportive and friendly, just like the chit chat you're sort of alluding to at the beginning or at the end of a meeting. All of that becomes awkward and forced on a video conference because it's set to begin at a certain time, and you can chat a bit, but that chat doesn't feel as relaxed and as natural as it would face to face, for some of the reasons that we're discussing and a few others besides.